I'm Adam Lowe, and I approve this message.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our Mix TV Candidate Spotlight. I'm Steve Hardline. Today, we'll put the candidate spotlight on Adam and his much better half, Rachel Lowe. Well, here they are, just as promised, Adam and Rachel Lowe. Guys, how are you?
We're good. We're great. I think you introduced her as my better half. She's my better whole.
Oh, man.
Brownie points.
Wow.
Listen, I've spent so much time on the campaign trail. I've got to earn every point I can get back home with Rachel. But she's with me quite often, too, on the campaign trail. She would just rather be doing other things.
Well,
that is not true. It's just so hot.
It's
just
very
so
hot right
hot.
these August state races are really interesting timing, isn't it?
You know, we 104 degrees at moments, out and about, and you can't slow down. You know, it's you try to get to as many people as you can, see them, talk to them, tell them why you're running, let them see your face, let them know you're still alive and okay. Yeah. Even though you don't look like it at times at 104 degree heat.
But it matters to them. Like, we've been greeted on the doorstep of many homes that are like, "Thank you for coming by, for
and
actually
here's a popsicle,
putting in the work, offering sodas and waters, and come in and sit down for a minute."
She gets those invites. I don't get.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Go to the back of the house or whatever.
That's right. You stay out here and eat that popsicle.
And we designed this program to really delve in a little bit more than we typically can. Adam, a lot of people know you've been around for a long time, but however, we got a lot of new people, a lot of new voters in the Senate district. So tell us about yourself, just a little bit here.
Yeah, sizable. Part of where we're campaigning right now is my old commission district. So I was on the county commission for several years, served the 4th district here in Bradley County. And I'm knocking this community I've been to before, I've knocked on before. And I'm at a door and somebody answers, and these are new people, right? They've moved in from out of town. So you're absolutely right. We have a lot of new faces, a lot of new people coming to town, coming to Tennessee to take part in the greatness that is Tennessee, the things that make us such a great state, our family values, the core conservative principles we govern by, a growing economy. It's just a great place for a family to be. So those people are there. Yeah, they're out there. And I do have to reintroduce myself a lot of times. And they want to know the core of who I am and who we are. They want to know about the family, the kids. They want to know that we are people of faith, that we are people of family values, that we actually care about taking care of children and taking care of community. And then sometimes they get down into the weeds. They want to know about education and work and all of those things. But for the past few years, most people know me from Man Up America, Talk 101.3 The Buzz, one of your stations. Yep. And we had that conservative talk radio show for 6 years. And so for 6 years, I've not dodged any bullets with regards to political conversations and discourse. But that radio show's been great. But as you know, Steve, it's a labor of love.
That is, especially with Alderman.
I never got a big paycheck from WCLE or anything.
Neither did I, quite frankly. I'm still waiting.
So we've over the years as a family unit, Rachel and I have raised our children in a partnership. Rachel's a phenomenal educator in one of our local school systems. She's assistant principal, and she's been an educator for going on 12 years now.
Stop it. I'm going on year 15.
Well, full-time.
15.
Full-time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So for several years, she was a stay-at-home mom, which is a big job, too.
Yeah, I did that for about 3 years.
And has continued to be an at-home mom while being a professional, like many women do in a community.
Wow.
And so it's been a great partnership. But for the most part, I teach now. I'm a professor of public policy with Liberty University. I've been in that capacity for several years. But I'm an enterprising guy. I've never really done one thing. I continue to manage financial resources for many nonprofits and individuals in the community. Closed a business, an 18-year business during COVID, which is a really, really sad story. The Venue Creekside was such an important part of this community for so long, and as an event center. And on top of that, our volunteerism in the community has been a big part of where most people see us, whether it's me coaching a basketball team or a football team, or Rachel and our involvement in the Boys and Girls Clubs, and just trying to be a part of what makes Bradley County great.
Rachel, you know him better than anybody. Why should people vote for your husband?
Some would say it's because you get 2 for 1
Yeah.
in this
Yeah,
race.
there you
It is
go.
true.
You
There you
really
go.
do. But we have a lot of good conversations when he comes home. So it's the issues that our community is facing, that the state is facing. He and I talk about it, and we go back and forth and really dive into these issues and what it means for our family at home. But it's so surprising also to see our kids picking up these conversations. So we realize, and you've said multiple times, we realize we may never be the greatest of the great, but we're raising the greatest of the great. And our children are following in our footsteps. So whatever impact we can make on this community and this state, I hope is just a small piece of the impact that our children coming behind us can make. So Adam doesn't dodge the hard issues at home in our community. He doesn't. And you need someone, because in the next 5-10 years, we've got a lot of things that our state is going to face. And it's not just normal everyday things. It's this unprecedented time that we're living in. And I believe my husband's the man for the job, because he's not going to back down when these hard issues come. He's willing to discuss them. He's willing to go back and forth and talk with people that don't always see eye to eye, but how can we come together and do what's actually right, find the truth in the matter, and help the people in our community, in this great state that we live in. And I think he's the man of the hour.
Adam, give me a few things that really stick out to you. Why you're running, why you're doing this, what set you on this path.
Well, Rachel's right. I don't particularly have the reputation of retreating from when things matter. Although, unless it's our marriage, then I do. I reserve my backing down for being at home.
Smart man.
But the family fact that she just alluded to, it really saddles me. It kind of sits in my soul. Families have been impacted dramatically in the past few years, and it's not changing. When we look at all the major issues we've faced and that we have on the horizon, the family kind of gets a double whammy. If dad doesn't have a job, it affects not only dad but the kids trying to raise a family in an economy like this. If dad owns a business and can't find laborers and is working 70 hours a week, it affects the family. When we talk about reforms in education, whether it's funding formula or curriculum changes or standards, those things affect the family. When we talk about school closures due to a pandemic, those things impact the family. When we talk about parents being able to go to work because of closures, that impacts the family. We have so much on the horizon. The gun control debates have drifted into what impacts the family now. So we feel a burden for what family is in a community, the importance of it. And then you take all of those issues, those real world issues that are attacking things like family values and family structure, putting stress on homes, and you couple it with political agendas that seek to just completely undermine what family is to begin with. I said to someone the other day, we live in a time where it's hard to understand having a conversation with your 15-year-old about transgenderism in school if you've never actually had a 15-year-old come home and ask you about that issue and had seen it in their school place. It's hard to understand what it's like to want to beef up school security and provide for the safety of our children in schools until you get that text message that your child's school's on lockdown and you're waiting for the all clear and you're just holding your breath. So when I talk to families, they all understand this and they feel it. And then we take a senator like Mike Bell, who's retiring. This seat that I'm running for was filled by Mike Bell for the past 16 years. Mike was a very special senator because he was about family. He represented family in Nashville. He went to Nashville. He came home to his family. He came home to his career, home to his church, home to his community. He exemplified what it meant to be a civil servant in a legislature and to represent those family values that really undergird the strength of a community. And he's decided to retire, and I wish him the best. And when he first decided to retire, I got nervous because I know he's that kind of senator. And I think that we would be remiss if we did not follow suit, if we did not continue to send people to Nashville who have those Mike Bell values, who have those Bradley County, Southeast Tennessee values, that have those Lowe family values, that really make a community great and really are the basis of not only the moral side of what we do in Nashville, but the practical side of what happens in our homes back here in town.
I'm going to ask you a question, as I've asked others, going back even to the May campaign. If you think over your life, who do you admire? So who's made a difference in your life that you can say, you know what, my goodness, that person has really, it doesn't have to just be one, but who are some people that you've really looked up to over the years?
Well, there's always the people who were close to you. I think of my grandfather. My grandfather was a World War II veteran and came home. He was a medic. When he got drafted, he went to his mother and he said, I don't want to kill anybody. And she prayed, and they put him in the medic corps.
Wow.
And he came back from World War II and went straight to work, spent his career as an elementary school janitor, and just was a hard worker, and yet was the most intellectual, wise man I've ever met in my life. And I still borrow from him little sayings. I told someone the other day a little saying he used to have, which is, you can have the moral high ground, but the air's awful thin up there. And it's just a saying to say that sometimes when you think you're doing something out of principle, you're not getting anything done, But he was very special to me, helped raise me because my parents were very young when they had me. My mother had me as a teen, chose to keep me, a pregnancy to keep. And so my grandparents helped raise me. So my grandfather was always a very strong man, but I was never afraid of him. And I always wanted to be like that. I wanted to be someone who was very strong, but in my presence, my children, my wife, my friends, even strangers felt safety in that strength. And I learned that from him. Intellectually, C.S. Lewis is my favorite author, right? A lot of my faith is embedded in both my experience with Christian men in my life, but the ideas that C.S. Lewis wrote about and things like Mere Christianity. And, read The Abolition of Man right now. Holy moly, does it not fit today in what we're dealing with as a society? So I always admired how deep and thoughtful C.S. Lewis was, composed with things like faith and family and community and governance. And then I was always tempered by the real world, simple example that I got out of my grandfather.
So as you go out on the campaign trail, Rachel, I'm going to begin with you. Okay. What are the concerns you're hearing from the people you're visiting with?
A lot of the same concerns that we've held, in our house for the past several years. The economy, inflation is a huge thing. Education is a big thing right now. And of course, with the most recent overturn in the Supreme Court, a lot of people are just, I think we've just tried to listen a lot. And it's been comforting when we've had those conversations with people and they're like, okay, so you understand why I'm nervous right now in today's economy, in today's social arena, with things going on. So me being in education, I shoulder a lot of those concerns that parents are coming in with. So a lot of the questions when I'm out with Adam and he's constantly, people are finding out that I work in the school system. They're like, okay, what about critical race theory? Or about what about this liberal left coming in, creeping in and wanting, asking a lot of our school systems, and how do we handle that? So I love the school system that I work for, and the thing is, we have a lot of local control over what happens in my particular school, and I appreciate that. It's a vote of confidence for our administrators in the school system, that you trust me to make good decisions for your children. And I love talking to parents about those things. And that's really my world, but you get hit with a lot more outside of education.
I get the deep questions. Let me try to sum it up in what I think my experience has been with people. People aren't happy and they're scared. Mm-hmm. They're scared because we have unprecedented inflation. We've had a pandemic where during the middle, when the crisis was there and on, they didn't feel like leadership was ready. They were scared with them. They didn't see a lot of the bravery they needed in that moment over the past few years. And so people want comfort. They want comfort. They want to know things are going to be okay. And so I hold hands and sometimes pray with them, but I'll make them the promise. Listen, send me to Nashville, and I'm not running scared. right? We're not going to do what we did before. We're going to tackle these things head on because we're going to have enough vision to see that those things are coming. So yeah, they get into the weeds on the issue, but it all triangulates back to concern, this legitimate concern about where we're going and what's going to happen next. What's my life going to look like in 5, 10 years from now? And I've always been one in this community to ask all the time. I mean, for years I've asked, if you're a small businessman, I'm going to ask you, how's business? And if you're somebody that I know and we're shaking hands, I'm going to end the conversation with, how can I help you? And so people have built a pattern of opening up and sharing those things with me. So there's a legitimate concern, and those people aren't crazy. They absolutely, we all experienced it. We experienced a time where we needed leadership, and at the very best it was delayed, and at the very worst, people were running and tucking into the corner. We look at other states that didn't do that, people like Ron DeSantis, and people are very happy with what Ron did in Florida, and they look at that as an example of bravery in the midst of crisis. And so people are concerned because they know more's coming. They know that crisis is on the horizon, and they need people of bravery working on their behalf.
Adam, Rachel, thank you very much for joining us. And in the final moments that we have, why don't you just speak directly to the voters and just anything you'd like to say?
Help is on the way. That's what I'll say. I think back to being a teenager working in high school at a sporting goods store. And I remember being entrepreneurial, enterprising, and looking around and seeing a need, and that we weren't doing deliveries and setups. And I remember walking across the street and negotiating with a buy here, pay here lot to buy a truck so I could do that. And then I remember delivering these things to people as a teenager and making money. And I'm concerned that our culture has moved past young, aspiring, enterprising people being able to go into the world and make a difference. Now, for me, it was as simple as making a little extra money because I came from a humble upbringing. But for the next young individual, for the next person, for the next child of yours, for the next grandchild of yours, we want to create a culture in Tennessee that allows them to be their best self. And that means we need an education system that's going to allow them to grow and excel. That means we need an economy that's going to have jobs in place for them. That means we got to have houses for families to live in. And ultimately, it means we're going to have to preserve the values that undergird the American way that we've seen so dear. You and I know that Washington is falling apart. And that as those things that happen in Washington, those degradation of values as it pushes into Tennessee, if we don't create a safe haven for our kids and our grandchildren going forward, they're not going to have the opportunity to excel. They're not going to have the opportunity to be the change we've got to see tomorrow. And they're not going to have the opportunity to do the things that God has planned for them.
Thank you so much for joining us for our Candidate Spotlight on MixTV.tv. I'm Steve Hartline. We'll see you next time.
Here at Mix 104.1 and Mix TV, we are maximizing our coverage this election season with one-on-one interviews, scheduled discussions, candidate spotlights, web polls, and so much more. We believe it is important that you stay informed to make decisions that matter to you and your family. Don't miss a minute. Visit mymix1041.com. Our election coverage is presented by the Logan Thompson Law Firm.